let me just start off from the bat with this episode with a pondering, deep, existential question that I just asked myself. And I'm going to ask all of you just to think about. It's a question. I'm just wondering, as a student, if the ego is the voice in our heads of our subconscious mind, then are we, as in singers, podcasters like myself, teachers in day-to-day living, mentors, the voices of our creator's subconscious mind or mind? It might not make sense to anyone. I don't even think it makes sense to me as I ask the question, but I figured I'd start off with a brainstorming icebreaker activity into the main point of this particular episode, because it has been happening to me over the all week, but that question popped into my head about 20 minutes ago, and I keep refraining of recording when stuff happens to me because I am the energetic type that has to ride the waves of emotion, because I'm very emotional, and I don't want to film myself or record myself when I'm angry or like showing those emotions that might trigger someone else, or especially that if people are new to this way of living and experiencing the human experience and coming into your true self. So I'm learning to balance while keeping my word to myself, my truth, and the intention that I started from this podcast of just going with the flow and recording. Because when I recorded the first couple episodes, I was so excited doing that, but that we're so used to instant gratification that's what it became to me. So now I'm trying to perfect everything, falling back into those shadows, being overly excessive with the lower vibrational aspects of myself. Now, my belief and my vibe that I get from all of that is, I don't think it has to be completely diminished. It just has to be balanced. Like, for me, balance is everything. Like, it's one of the first terms of this journey, especially the past 2 years, that makes the most sense and feels right. But I'm also in the position to understand since I'm always riding the waves of emotion, of just learning and actually experiencing my energy type and working with my energy. Because through things like human design, which is amazing, by the way, but I don't want to start speaking on that until I build a foundation and record through my Astro Vision episodes to get a basis on astrology and what it means to me, because that's one of the aspects combined with energy, quantum physics, and just like numerology, basic, like just all the intro, they just build upon each other, but they like collab, and it makes this other topic that I became aware of last year that it's just even wilder. It's just amazing, but it's also like Calc 3 to the excited student, to be honest. So, and as you can see, I'm trying to speak very slow because when I get excited, I overwork my own self speaking and I just ramble and ramble and ramble. And I feel like it's okay for me to ramble only because I'm putting my thoughts into action, into voice. And for me, like I said, we're in Gemini season. My vertex in astrology is in my 8th house of Gemini, which is partnerships, collabs. And I'm a Sagittarius sun, and my sister sign, which is opposite on the zodiac wheel, especially in the Western astrology, is Gemini. And my destiny is to use my voice. My voice has been stunted since birth, literally since birth. In all my experiences, if you look at it from a linear perspective, all the things that have felt like, and to the own human mind perceived as weakness, as awful things with my story. But that's the kicker. And this is where I'm actually experienced, because I'm making this up as I go, as I'm talking right now. And this is important finally for me to say out loud, is all the weaknesses that I felt about myself and the awful shit that has happened to me, that when I'm out of my energy type, I go into victim mode. And sometimes it's so gray, like 50 shades of gray, like that I just can't decipher if it's a victim mentality or if it's truth, and it's just, but I'm finally seeing that all the stuff and struggle is where your magic comes, where it lies. It's your purpose. I struggle with listening to my intuition. On this journey, I talked to 2 people that are skilled and opened up their gifts that we all have. We just are all on different learning curves, I guess, of opening those gifts up. But I didn't second guess either of them. And that's where I struggle. And today I realized, I was like, if I'm second guessing something, just throw it out. I just have to throw it out. There's a difference in intellect in our minds where you have to discern through things. But the trick is, especially if you have the emotional type of energy like I do, is to bring into your awareness what that is. How does it work for you? How's it unique to you? And you will know. We all know our own self, right? This is the journey of self. It's like, how I mentally pictured it is from a graphic gore perspective, because I do like horror movies, and but I would never act upon those things. I just think I don't know why it's interesting. They're interesting to me. They're fun. They're crazy. They're scary. I don't know. I get different type of feelings with them, and I've loved them since I was a kid. But if you look at a human body, right, and you just cut off all your different limbs, just cut them off. That's what happened to each of us. The creator of all things, the universe, the God. I'm sure some people say Buddha, or I say Harry Potter, your dog, anything bigger than yourself, right? We are all those body parts cut off, separated from the whole. This is the experience of that. Now, the game And I say life is a game because I used to play Life on PlayStation and the board game, which is very fun, by the way, and I haven't played it in a few years. But this is the game from my experience, what I'm putting together, using all my skills I've honed, that I came into this life with, that I've learned in this life and discerned what was right for me. The information that I discerned from what was right from my mentors or other podcasters or people in my life. I beat myself up because I'm stubborn. I have that Sagittarius in me, right? Like my way or the highway, which all of us are like that in some form or another in our lives. We're only human, but I need to listen. I need to listen more to people around me. And as my awareness builds, I'm just becoming more natural at that. Because at first I just started to do the things that other podcasters I listened to said not to do. Don't resonate with every single thing you learn from others that are going through the experience and that have more experience with it. They're not better than you. They don't know more than you. It's just they're knowing through experience. And being kind of new, I feel like 2 years into the depth of this human experience from the self to the whole, I feel like I'm newer. It's year 2 at Hogwarts, and right now I feel like I'm in fucking detention. Honestly, through my experience, but I've never been in detention in high school. I almost came close to once, but the only thing I did that was rebellish in high school was I skipped a lot of school because I just couldn't be there. I didn't connect with anyone. I was treated awfully. I just felt like I was ostracized, a leper for who I choose to have sex with. And nobody understands that in my life because no one is gay or honest about being gay. Because I'm not going to out anyone, because it was done to me by people that were bullies that are probably gay themselves. And if they are, I would open them up with open arms because I know how it feels. And practicing forgiveness for myself and for others that have hurt me is actually the key to getting through those moments where I just break down because I still hold on to them so much, and from the stories that I've told in the past few episodes about how that guy just saying how his dad treated him awfully and then his dad died, but his dad's soul loved him so much that in this experience in Earth had to play that role, had to be the actor, quote, air quotes. And you hear it all the time, life's a movie, but it feels so real because it's so deep here. The depth, it's just insane. And I just have been struggling since that shadow moon. It's crazy because it's in my awareness now. And I'm resisting. And I know I'm resisting, and I'm saying it out loud now. And later in this episode, I'm going to talk about what is resistance and how I'm resisting. And because it'll help, I feel like, others when they're going through this journey to have some examples of that. Because sometimes I listen to others and I just don't relate to their examples, but I understand their situation because I'm going through that situation. But there's someone out there that has the same type of example that could help me down the road. And in divine time, we will find those areas of help in the areas that we're lacking. I haven't taken an introductory course to psychology since over a decade ago. I know I took it in junior or senior year of high school, and I took it in college, twice actually. But, you know, the information that's laid out is based on profound psychologists such as Sigmund Freud and his idea of the id, ego, and superego, and Carl Jung's understanding and teachings of the archetypes and how they correlate in our day-to-day living through perceptions of our reality in the self-regulating psyche. But in my other podcast series, I'm definitely going to go into an episode or two about psychological understandings in my own journey that I intuitively feel should be expressed and thrown out there to see what correlates with your own journey. But that'll be more of a future podcast. However, this past week and a half, actually it's been since the shadow moon in Scorpio, with my south node being in the first house of self, I just been in like a lower vibrational, not self state. And as you go through this journey, you become aware of when you're not in your flow or your energy. And I recorded this episode, part of it, a week ago as I was Ubering Friday night from a Get-Go parking lot, which is a gas station around here. And so much activity going on, noise in the background. It was kind of humorous and exciting though with the episode. However, I was in my shadow self and state, so I was very triggered. And when I was recording it, and I still have the recordings, I saved them for maybe a later date just to show what it's like to go through certain shadow aspects in shadow work, and when you become aware of it and when you are triggered. Because I'm learning your best art and expression comes through those dark periods in your life. However, I also have to be sensitive to others that may be listening to this podcast today or in the future, because they might be new to this journey, they might get triggered themselves. But from an authentic standpoint, I think it's good to show our vulnerabilities in the moment. And like I said, I've been trying to find the middle ground as I navigate my energy and ride the waves of when it is best to record and upload on this podcast platform my experiences in this self-discovery journey. But the main topic of this episode is ego. Hence the little nifty title I have, Lego My Eggo. Now, let me tell you about how I came up with that title. So, Eggo waffles have been a part of my life since I was little. Especially the cinnamon ones are so good. But I used to put peanut butter on just a regular Eggo waffle. My stepdad used to do it, and it was something he did that I loved. And you know, I haven't actually done it in a while, but how the peanut butter melts on the waffle, it's amazing. Or if you use log cabin or Aunt Jemima syrup, hey, both are amazing. But think of the marketing of that. You know, it's been around since my generation, even the generation before us were kids, you know, Lego My Eggo. But how creative is that? Because through this process of reparenting myself and what you will do to yourself when you become ignited inside to embrace the journey, it's about not listening to that chatty voice in your head that smothers you and protects you to keep you safe in that comfort zone. You expand, your soul grows through putting yourself in situations and experiences that are uncomfortable. But it's the process of letting the ego go that is hard to get through. And that's where I'm at right now. And it becomes a topic, and it, like I said, the journey is a spiral. It comes and it goes, and it comes and it goes. And since that shadow moon, in the house of self for me, since my first house is a Scorpio, it's been a lot. I just been kind of in that shadow aspect. But the key is not to listen to all those voices in your head. You have to, and it takes practice, But I am so hard on myself, and now that I've become aware of that, I logically have become aware of that, but I also hear that voice in my head. It's nasty. It brings me down. It brings my soul down. But I've become aware of the different voices. Before this journey even started for me, when I was having the spring break of a lifetime doing and exploring drugs and socialization and alcohol in my late 20s, right before the pandemic, like right before all this stuff blew up and now is my reality, it was basically the last hoorah before taking responsibility of my own life. And it comes at different times for each one of us, because we all are unique in an expression of the universe and the soul creator. Sorry for that little bell sound. I'm actually working right now as I'm recording, because this actually intertwines with this episode, because my ego still has more control, right? Because I have to let go of control. We're not in control here. We're just the conduits and the tools in which the spiritual realm expresses itself. But we also are a part of the whole, and we all are important, not more or less than the person standing next to us. We're part of something bigger. But as I explore this episode, I remembered that correlation between Lego, My Eggo, that has been a well-known slogan since we were little. And I remember texting my friend Demi last year, as she's on her journey, and it started around the same time as mine. I told her about that correlation, and she was like, wow, that's crazy. And I was like, I know, right? But that's where my mind, finds deeper meaning in everything. Almost to an obsessive point, but I'm learning to balance that as with everything else in my life. So I will explain in my other podcast about the information that I discerned through my own journey about psychological terms such as the ego. But I've been able to distinguish between the voice of the higher self, of my higher self, and the voice of a witness, and the voice of my ego that's been formed since I was young. Since you were young, your ego has been formed. It's the filter in this reality. It's the voice of your subconscious mind, of my subconscious mind. But it's when we give the ego all the power that holds us back. And it's overwhelming. I'm still overwhelmed in this whole process. But you find the rituals and the tools in which you can navigate through your day-to-day living. And right now I'm having trouble to integrate my spiritual seeking self with just my human life, because we are human. We are here to experience the human experience. And I feel like I do a disservice when I'm so focused just on spirituality that I'm not living. So it's been a stressful process that has made me doubt and question my own hope. But hope is always there. It's anchored inside each of us. You have it, I have it, and through my own experiences and sharing with you folks, I feel like maybe it'll just guide you, and maybe you can relate to find that hope again, that light that is living and growing inside of us. So the past few weeks I've been in my not self state, my energy, not my true self. And for me, and through human design, which is another topic I'll go in depth with later in my other podcast series, my not self can be distinguished through being bitter, judging other people, comparing with other people, my journey to theirs. We all do it. But that's when I know my ego is in control, is calling the shots. So we've heard of terms, there's music, and you've heard of celebrities that go on crazy ayahuasca adventures in Costa Rica and to kill their ego, or something called the ego death. The funny thing is about ego is, as a human, it's our drive, it's our desire. You know, it keeps me going to formulate new desires, new dreams. So it's more about not ego physical death, but more about letting go of the ego. And as you reparent yourself, it's more of balancing and connecting the ego to your heart center and your soul. Yeah, human life is a shit show, to be honest, because this stuff isn't really taught in secondary education or even elementary school. It's basically, and I feel like no one talks about it. It's very, very mind-blowing. But I think this is the time in humanity where we want to see change, especially for the generations to come, and we want to end the ancestral wounds and trauma that keeps getting passed down from generation to generation. And I feel like our generation right now, you know, if you were born in the late 80s, 90s, is to come to terms with focusing on your self-growth and development and self-love. So when you do have children one day, or inspire and teach young minds that are growing, you come from a place of love and light rather than just projections. But we are only human. We are limited in that sense. So I logically am learning things, but I like to see it in experience and feel it in my soul. And through intuition, I am able to relay the information to others through this podcast. And that's part of my soul contract and journey, depending on your beliefs and what you are learning. It's just so much information, and I actually overwhelm myself because I love to learn again. And learning something new is just building your awareness. But through realizing my shadow self and that shadow moon, I shouldn't judge myself. And you shouldn't either. You should just come from a place of love this time, rather than just believing that egoic mind's voice bringing you down. We already have so much to deal with in the material world. in navigating life now after a pandemic, during a pandemic still, that harsh words and, thoughts of the negative aspect just aren't healthy. And it takes practice. It takes a lot of self-reflection and vulnerability to grow from it. And we all go through shadow work. And Carl Jung explains the shadow archetypes. Like for me, perfectionism is one thing. I know jealousy is one, or envy, one of the two. One has to deal with relationships, and the other one is more of like just everyone else, like platonic and everything. But I still am learning about that, and I still want to see what fits my truth before I go into detail about that. And that's more informative, so that'll be more on the other podcast series. But it's just been a wild process the past 2 years for myself, and for those of you that are actually on this journey as well. And if you're listening, I feel like you have a sense or are awakened to higher levels of consciousness. When you clear and release and go through the shadow self, the not self, it opens up energy and room to get downloads from the spiritual realm and the higher realms to raise your vibration and raise your consciousness. I know the past 2 weeks I feel like I've just been backtracking, and I feel like I haven't been enough, and that's just my egoic mind calling the shots and trying to infiltrate into my true self. But through practice and being aware and being able to distinguish between that subtle, calm voice of your higher self and your ego talking is growth in itself. That's the first thing, just to be aware of the harsh things you say to yourself. And all that stuff has been being said in the back of my mind, unconsciously, subconsciously, my whole life. And it just grows and grows and grows, and it's evil. It's rude, it's harsh, it's degrading, and it's not how we should be talking to ourselves. We fuck up. I mean, it's inevitable in human life. And forgiving yourself and forgiving myself is huge in this journey. Forgiving others. It's a process. It takes time, but showing up and becoming aware of it and trying harder the next time, it makes all the difference. The Untethered Soul is a book by Michael A. Singer that came out, I think, in 2007. But my aunt told me about it, and actually 2 other people that I know are reading it or just have read it too, I noticed. I actually have the audiobook version and the regular version. I got it at Target. You can get it online, Barnes & Noble, or what have you. But it's very good and in-depth about understanding and distinguishing between the voices in our head, between the higher self, the ego, the witness, and how our thoughts aren't most of the time ours, really. I mean, it's a collective conscious, and sometimes, and I'm learning through my own experience, I harbor and take on thoughts and energy of others to transmute it into light. And as some of my mentors that I've listened to on podcasts and learned from that have been going through this journey for some time, we all are on our own path and journey, and there's no competition between anyone but ourselves. And every time you go through the shadow work and spiral and you become more aware, like I have through my own experience, and I've been talking about the moments when you are in your not self, and that's just opportunity to grow and expand more. And you get your best art from that, like I said before. But it's hard for me at this moment to say, okay, Brandon, this is your shadow self. Don't listen to the evil voices in your head telling you that you are not enough. Grow from this. Use it to your advantage. Turn it into light. And that's the process that I'm in right now, to remembering I can use this to expand my creativity, growing through my darkness. But like I said, it's a process that we have to become aware of and practice, and life's a spiral. I fell asleep last night listening to a podcast girl, Delana, who she's actually putting out episodes again. Like I said, she wasn't for a while, and I woke up this morning to the podcast still going, and she was talking about the journey of the tarot, of, you know, you might have heard of the tarot card called the Fool, going through the journey, and it was very interesting, and I need to re-listen to it because I do want to talk about tarot since it's more in my awareness now. There's so many different modalities that I just keep jumping, you know, getting a little bit of information from each, being shallow with each subject, because I don't want to get too enthralled like I did with astrology with each one of them, because it just causes yourself to be overwhelmed, especially when you're trying to integrate, like I am, into the material realm and being here as a human. So it's a lot of trial and error with everything. But we are built for this. We are built for success, despite what society says and our ego says. But I feel like if you are trying to learn to decipher and discern between your higher self, building your intuition, and knowing when your ego is speaking to you, that book is amazing to navigate different ways in your own experience. You can decipher those voices, and it's helped me. I definitely listened to the book in full. I didn't read the book in full though, because, you know, I'm Ubering and doing Grubhub and trying to make income with the raising gas prices, now over $5 here. I don't know about where you live, but, you know, I keep telling myself, man, I picked the most challenging time to come to myself and raise my vibration and consciousness. But I feel like I've been doing it my whole life without even being aware of it. You know, with music and pop culture and trends and marketing and stuff, I keep looking back into my life, just like the Lego My Eggo slogan, you know? The signs and the foundation from a place of love and light have always been there too, and my mind's picked up on that as well. So for me, it's a battle of my own worst enemy, you know, the battle of me versus my ego, in a sense, the subjective identity. And I feel ego death is explained differently between everyone, but from a science-based and psychological base from the licensed psychologists and stuff of people that actually went to school for this. You know, I don't know why we need a degree or certificate to speak our stance of the information that we learn. That's why I'm discerning through stuff that I'm learning, because I'm not a professional. However, this is how I applied it in my own journey. This is how I experienced it. And from that, we can bounce off our own experience. And, it's all creating unity and understanding between each other, because we're so disconnected with ourselves and with each other, humanity in a sense. It's just, I keep saying it, we're the ununited states. And from there, we're disconnected from other parts of the globe. We're all the human race. We're all spiritual beings in a human form. Why are we all against each other? And that starts with home, internally and externally, and your own living situation and your day-to-day living is a mirror to that. The next episode, I talk about mirrors, in a sense, how we all are a mirror to each other. How sometimes the things that we do are just because we are mirrors for other people in situations. And we don't have control in this life, but people have told me when I started this journey, and it still vibes with me throughout each day, is you have control of how you react in the situations that life throws at you. And astrology, like my other podcast series, in which I recognize astrology most in the title, isn't very predictive in a sense, but it does help with understanding your own psyche or psych. I don't know why I say psyche. I don't know. I just like the E on the end. I add E's to everything. Like Kenny is my nickname. Today is Kenny Chesney's in town, and the vibration in Pittsburgh is all things Kenny. I definitely tweeted that earlier today. It's my nickname that my good friends give me, and it fits. I have so many nicknames, but I feel like it's not so much killing off the ego, like I said before. It's more about letting go of the parts of the ego that are not helping, but rather hindering you. And through my own experience, I'm seeing the ego, my own ego, it's just dwindling down, slowly through my growth process, but my sense of self is still here, but it's just learning to balance. Like I said before, it's all about balance. Sorry, I'm getting orders out to wazoo. And when I do this, I'm doing Uber and Grubhub, because Grubhub pays a little bit better, and Uber is just becoming another example of why corporate America is awful. Now that I've worked with them for so long. But when I do this, I overwhelm myself because I'm trying to navigate between two different apps, and I'm late. But I feel like in a sense it helps with my perfectionism to challenge myself to overcome the feeling and triggering of being rushed and not perfect. So in a way, I feel like it's helping this process now that I am actually experiencing it real time as I'm talking and recording this podcast. And I'm also sorry for the random sound in the background. That's when I'm on road rather than just chilling at home on Hope Road. But I'm trying to provide for myself as fast as I can while I endure my creative pursuits. And today was a day where I just feel like I have clarity and I can just talk about my experiences over the past week and a half. And I'm actually going to record the next episode as well, since it's fresh in my mind. But last Friday, Post Malone, who I'm a fan of, his first album was amazing to me, but he's definitely in the mainstream artist. He has a good sound, a good voice. He's his own person, and he's unique in that sense. And I'm sure most of you have heard who he is. He released his newest album, and it just really tied into with this episode and my own journey. But his first two songs actually on the album, because most artists say to listen to an album first song to last song, because it tells a story. But then some artists, I like the Chainsmokers, if you like the EDM, dance, high vibrational type sound. He said, Drew Taggart, who's one of the musicians in the duo, listen to any order you want when he released it, when he was promoting it. And I thought that was interesting, because I take that to heart, because sometimes with music I kind of just jump around. I love the features a lot, because Post Malone on this album featured Doja Cat, and I love her. She's one of my top artists right now, because they're all unique, and I feel like they express themselves differently, but I relate to them because I do have the artistic qualities. I'm trying to find my sound and my voice, and trying to grow into my creative abilities. But that's something that has been gained from the spiritual journey, because my love for pop culture, music, and movies, and all sorts of stuff has been there since I can even remember. But now I'm gaining the confidence through this growth process to fully express myself in my own creative ways. No, it's okay. It's okay. This lady wasn't paying attention. And I'm paying attention, but I have that magnetic thing for the iPhone, so I can just record as I'm driving without really taking my eyes off the road, doing the safest way possible, Always remember to be safe in each moment as best as you can. Because sometimes I forget. But I'm only human. But Post Malone's album was released, and I listened to it, on Apple Music. It came out at Friday morning, and his first song on the album is my favorite so far. And the second song on the album is the popular released one with Roddy Ricch, Cooped Up, because I feel like I've been cooped up, to be completely honest. Taken aback, working on myself, because I've been so for socializing and being there for others that I forgot about myself in the process, and that's what this journey is. So to detach from socializing and not giving in to FOMO and all sorts of stuff has been very challenging, because it's almost like I had to let go of that person, that part of myself. And it feels like I've been dealing with grief of my own self, figuratively dying, not physically, but it does feel physically, through a lot of emotional release, crying, and being extra sensitive and empathic now that I'm more aware of it and who I am in this lifetime and always, my soul. It's just been a lot, and overwhelming sensations will occur. They have been for me, and through others that I hear talk about this journey. So learn to forgive and accept that, and take time for yourself, and put yourself first with self-care, and don't beat yourself up if you can't make it to the gym or cheat on your diet or go back to those habits that you're trying to release because they aren't you. Those areas of comfort, because we aren't perfect, and you'll find your way as I am finding my way alongside you. Wow, now that I'm saying that in real time and like it's fresh from my thoughts into this platform through my voice, it's very empowering to show that self-acceptance and vulnerability. I just wanted to, give credit to where credit is due, because I tend to not do that ever for myself. Like I said, my ego is very harsh, demanding, and it's not the way it should be, I feel like, for anyone. But in my own experience, the letting go of the ego, in a sense where you learn to balance and incorporate it into your true self, you could see just from the past few podcasts that I'm becoming aware of my shadow self. I'm becoming aware through these crazy synchronicities and experiences of how I connect with intuition and formulate my podcast episodes, how I am becoming more one with the universe. I'm becoming more unified with others and myself. It's a slow process, but it's just one day at a time, baby steps. And as you work through your shadow aspects, even though they come to the surface, that doesn't mean you're back at square one. It's more of a release. Because how I felt the past 2 weeks is not how I feel today. But it does come back. Growth is the rest of our lives. It's a process, and as our soul expands, we come to new situations and experiences that test us, but it's from a place of love and teaching and growth through the lessons of day-to-day living rather than punishment. Because as much as it feels like I'm suffering, in question, do we like to suffer? Do I like to suffer? Like, I always wonder that. Like, does it keep me coming back for more? Some of the greatest songs I've ever listened to and found were during this process. I organized it into my own playlists that are very cathartic and help with my healing. But I'm wondering if I'm not in that state of suffering and sadness, would I ever listen to those songs again? I thought about that the other day. It's very interesting how my mind likes to dig deeper into the meaning of everything, of day-to-day living. But back to Post Malone's album, I listened to the first song, and I love when songs instantly end, but they segue right into the next song. I don't know what that is in a musical sense, but the first song deals with, he feels like he's giving up his life to please others. And this is my own interpretation from the lyrics and the sound and the feeling that it gives me. But he talks about taking his life for the happiness of others. And when I'm in my lowest points, my ego talks, loves to chat, loves to attack more than help protect, to be completely honest. But that's the moment where I feel like it becomes alien inside of you because your heart's starting to open and your light's starting to shine, so it doesn't take center stage. And that's more of ego death to me. It's more of letting go of the hindering parts. And you can see that in real time when you self-reflect and understand that we all are connected, we all are one, we all are parts of the whole. You logically can understand through other people's experiences, but when you start to see it in your own life, like I have been, even the past few weeks during my shadow times even, there's always something good in each day. And I feel like that's when you start to download more into your conscious awareness, because you're making room and letting go of the shadow aspects that aren't who you truly are. So it's been a very eye-opening past few weeks in my growth and self-discovery journey. But this all has to do with the ego getting the best of me and learning for next time, whenever it happens, how to respond and react that time around through experience. And that's a lot of what life is, learning through experience. But the first song he talks about that, but then he segues into a song about feeling so cooped up and ready to shine, in a sense. Now, I didn't dissect and really put meaning into each song in the album. There's so much music right now that I'm just whatever my feeling is, I always know the song to pick. That's just a gift that I have for myself, to feel the feelings that I have. But those first two songs really are an example of what I'm actually going through right now. And just because he's in a place of success, of where I want to be, doesn't mean that he's not feeling the same things, especially being around the same age. Because I heard on a podcast yesterday of someone that I really admire, she was saying that just because at a young age you are on Oprah and you're doing movies and all this stuff, when your Saturn return comes around, which I'll definitely talk about in my Astrovision series, and that happens around, the first Saturn returns around 28 to 30, and depending on where it is in your birth chart, for example, my Saturn is in Capricorn, like most people my age, as well as my mom and my aunts. Her first Saturn return was when she had me. It's a big turning point in your life. It's, like I said, a initiation into adulthood, into your 30s. But she was saying that you were probably supposed to do those successful things as part of your journey, but your Saturn is the teacher, is the masculine teacher, the more strict teacher in a sense, but through love and through teaching about how your soul is really here to expand and what you signed up for. Even though we can't remember what we signed up for, I feel like life is a process of remembering that. And with Saturn being in the third house for me, it's all about communication and how to communicate what I'm feeling, what I'm learning. And, this podcast is a step in the right direction, if anything. But I've been resisting, and that's my ego still having a hold and running the show. I've been resisting of putting time into this podcast, being authentic, showing up, being disciplined in a sense, but with the experience and intuition aspect with Hope on Road, it's kind of hard to say, okay, each Thursday this is, that was my first intention because I was born on a Thursday. But I have to wait for the experiences to come, as well as setting the boundary of I need to learn how to navigate my own energy since I'm more newer to this growth process. But as the show progresses, it'll be cool to see that discipline take form for myself and for you as you're learning through my own experience and, seeing if it correlates with yours. Let's talk about resistance, though, as I stated a few minutes ago. In my own experience, I've been resisting, especially in my shadow work moments the past few weeks. And you might hear it on this journey about something called the dark night of the soul or the energetic flu. It's something that I was aware of, but never really was aware that I was experiencing, I guess. But the past few weeks is an example of that. But it's all unique to each our own. And it feels like it's a release, a grief process. Almost you're grieving past selves that you're letting go of as you raise your consciousness and receive more downloads. And this is an actual example from my own life of a dark night of the soul journey that we constantly go through, not knowing when or how or what it's going to be like. And each time may be faster or longer, depending on what's happening in your own human life. But I just wanted to take note of that because it just came into my awareness again yesterday. The actual title of Dark Night of the Soul. So if it's happening to you, you'll know, because in that moment you'll be aware of when you're not in your actual true self state and you're going through shadow work. Because whether you're aware or awakened, you could just be living your life, you go through shadow work. But to be aware of it might give you a sense of, this is why this is happening. This is why I'm a bitch today, or I'm snapping on some random, because you're triggered and I just never realized something triggered me. A wound triggered me that I haven't healed, that's been suppressed or in my unconscious mind, almost been taken over by the ego. The ego hides it from us. I don't know. It's just like, I feel like there's so many parts of each of ourselves that we're battling against. And a moment of desperation or playing the victim, why is this happening to me? You might ask. I ask that all the time. I know in numerology, being a life path of number 8, a lower vibration of that is the victim mode. And I see that in other people too that might have different life path numbers than myself. But in a sense, they all intertwine as we all intertwine with each other. We're all a part of the whole and we should strive for unity. But first you have to get real about your own self and your own soul and express it the most authentically as you can day to day. Show up as who you truly are in everything that you do. And There's just a license plate that just passed me. It says H2 video. And I know what it's telling me because I was aware of it. Spirit likes to talk to me through numbers, like especially angels love to talk, and that's their like frequency, because they don't speak to us in like, you know, English or whatever language you speak. It's more of a different frequency through just, they speak through actually other humans, and they can speak through license plates or numbers. That's like their frequency, and that, you know, that's how I'm connecting more and more each day. That's a place where I have a grasp on connecting as I open my spiritual gifts. And the next episode, I'm going to talk about how I actually connect even more, learn to connect even more. But, you know, it's all in due time and process. And when I'm going through my shadow work and dark night of the soul, it's very hard to, you know, take the opportunity. You know, it takes practice, and life's a spiral. So when it comes around again, I'll have a better grasp and mindset to begin using it to my advantage. But I just wanted to stress upon ego in a sense, and I'm sure there'll be episodes in the future where I come back to this topic. I feel like this is the first round of podcasts where I just lay out all the groundwork of my own experience and what I've been feeling, because it took almost 2 years until I actually voiced my own journey. I never thought this would even be possible, because I just started getting into podcasts a year before I actually created my own. But everything's lining up, you know, in divine time, and it's so wild to see that. And it's like the feeling, like I said, it finds you when it's your turn or your time. I feel like we all have the opportunity to show up as our authentic self and break past the lies and narratives that we tell ourselves. Not everything is a lie or a narrative, I feel, as people talk about that. And I'm not just defending my own ego, I'm just saying there is some truth into everything that you perceive. You just have to be able to navigate the truth from your highest self and your egoic mind. And I feel like this is the start of being truly aware and observing of that in my own journey. And like I said, it was an experience that I just now put into a whole episode topic, actually. So I love how it's, you know, coming to fruition, so to speak. But I've been resisting, like I started this segment off saying, resistance. And the good thing about segments is I can actually like take a break from talking so much, because I'll just ramble and ramble and ramble. As well as if I have to drop an order off, you're not, you know, hearing to my footprints and sounds of whatever in the distance, as I'm doing a job that has become really easy to me, and it's actually boring and not fulfilling, but it's how I'm making an income. I've been resisting to continue my spiritual pursuits into doing the podcast, and I believe that it comes all in divine time, and I firmly believe that we always are on the right path, even though we do have free will choices, especially when you are grappling with learning about who you truly are. I don't think you will steer yourself wrong. Your highest self won't steer you wrong. Sorry, I can't even speak at the moment. that's the thing about just winging an episode. I just feel like I stumble on my words, and I'll delete the segment and then restart because I'm still learning how to let go of a lot of that perfectionism mentality. But, I'm working on it. Rome wasn't built in a day, like I always say. So, resistance. How have I been resisting? Well, I could tell you, like I just said, I've been putting more energy into doing this job that's not fulfilling because of all the financial obligations I'm trying to relieve myself of. I've been resisting because I'm supposed to instill patience, as each of us should. But when it comes to finances, like, look at the economy with gas prices, and I'm just behind on everything. And I'm not going to sound like I'm, desperate on this podcast, but, this is what I'm actually experiencing. And I'm sure others are too. I just hate confrontation with people in my life that are also emotional types. I feel like I'm never doing enough financially. I'm not Ubering enough. I'm not Grubhubbing enough. I'm not getting a random job to be stuck in the same thought patterns and the same negativity because it's not fulfilling. So the stuff that is fulfilling to me, my creative pursuits, take time. It's a vision that I'm getting pieces to each day to truly, fully succeed with financial security, purpose. Like I said, I have this strong feeling that my purpose is tied to my actual career in life. And within 2 weeks, I was unfulfilled with this job. However, it is fast money and gets me by, at least, with day-to-day living. And I can actually record this show while I'm making money with that show. But it's taking patience and trust in the universe that I will be taken care of materialistically, financially, in abundance. And it's just patience for that to come through. As much as it seems like my whole world is falling apart financially, and it really strikes my self-worth, and my actual natal chart shows that. So why am I getting beeped at? Oh, because the other guy was in the wrong lane. Cool. Sorry. Little sidetrack there. People always beep, and then I get like sensitive because it's like, oh my gosh, it's my fault. I'm not paying attention. But that time it wasn't. So, okay. But remember, no one's at fault. See, it's logically easy to understand that. However, in experience, it's trying to correlate and incorporate that into reaction. And it's a process like everything else. But I've been resisting of continuing my spiritual pursuits. It does take over a lot of my life. I feel like I'm not socializing like I used to. And I crave communication and connection between other beings, human beings. I feel like I'm not showing up in my relationships because I'm isolating myself, like I've said before. However, the isolation does have to take form working on yourself to show up in your other relationships, whether it be sexually, marriage, platonic relationships, your mom, whoever, any relationship you have with someone else. But it all starts with you. It's the rope that it all ties to you, if that makes sense. But I'm in the process of navigating how I should show up authentically with my boundaries in mind. So it's been overwhelming, like I've said before. And when the ego takes center stage, I feel like it's just taking 10 steps back again, back to my old self. So I get hard on myself because it's like, so I guess I'm not learning what I thought I was learning, but it's so dense here on Earth, and from other realms, they can see from the naked eye what we can't see. So what looks like a shitstorm to me and my human self and others' human selves and you, if you were to look at my life and perceive it vice versa, it could be something beautiful in work. Because I am in a huge period of transformation right now, and through my natal chart you can tell that this is the time. I mean, it'll be the rest of my life, but this is like the biggest transformation from letting go of who I never was, who I thought I was, and showing up as my authentic, truer self, which will ultimately lead to a fulfilling and happy life, what we all strive for, what we emphasize on Instagram. But I want to experience that in real time, not just on my cell phone. As do you, somewhere in there. You've been thinking about it, or you've always felt that way. But I've been resisting. It seems like I get the energy to do and work on this podcast series and the other one that I just created when I'm working a job that's unfulfilling because I'm getting instant gratification with fast income to get through those financial hurdles that affect my self-worth. And it really does, but being the lowest of the low in the financial realm, in the materialistic side of the human experience, I've learned to get by with only things that I need. I've learned about how corporate America is awful, more in my own experience, because I kind of just ignored it. I've learned a lot of things about how it's not money that's evil, it's the intention of how we use it, and how greed is destroying us in our humanity. And I'm not wealthy yet, but it's good to know what it's like to have nothing at one point in your life. So when you do come into success, you can be grateful and know from your truest self in your heart of how to help others that are in need, that are going through the same thing that you went through. Because a lot of people that are really wealthy are just born into it, and I always wondered how they feel about certain topics. Though I'm not personally friends with them or, discuss these things, finances could be just very touchy and sensitive. But in my own experience, this is what I'm grappling with. This is the fork in the road where it's just like, if I go one way, I'll maybe through trust, it has to be belief and trust in the universe that this will lead to my success. But on the other hand, I can't just not pay anything. So it's kind of like a catch-22, I think. I don't know. It's very taxing and it's very strenuous and it's pulling at my heart and it's poking the bear of my egoic mind. So, and then I have that to deal with on top of everything else. But, We all have our shit, but to be able to express that through my voice to random people that listen to this, whether you know me or not, it's a lot. It's coming to a place of being vulnerable and showing what is happening on this journey. But it's just, you have to take time for rest and know when you've had enough and reached your limit. And I'm learning how that is huge in my life as well. I just have a lot of energy right now, but then 2 days from now, I'll literally be dead to the world. And it's just learning how to navigate your own energy, your own vibration. So it's a process. But a year from now, it could be completely different as times change, vibrations change. I don't know anything that I'm learning now, And I actually mean saying that. At first I would get triggered like, well, then why are you talking if you don't know anything? What? You know what I mean? But I'm understanding that shit changes just so fast. And what one path we take today could be completely different tomorrow. It's the journey. It's the fun in it. So I've been resisting, but I'm learning to balance. I have to make income, but I have to take some time as well to invest in my future through creative pursuits. So if I have to do it while I'm Ubering, and if the podcast doesn't sound great and there's random sounds in the back, beeping and all sorts of shit, then so be it. It's just funny how I have the energy to do it while I'm doing this job. But yeah, this is the intro to ego, and I'll definitely get more scientific with it on my other podcast series. But the next episode deals with mirrors, and it actually was an experience that I had Tuesday, the day after Memorial Day. So before this, but I kind of wanted to switch up the episodes, and I don't know why yet. But I'll probably reveal why I did that in the next episode when I record it, so that's fine. But as always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Hope on Road. Never miss an episode by subscribing, and don't forget to follow @Hope on Road on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok.